Welcome! I am author D.M. Patterson, and since I am sitting, this is Sasha. In this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what to expect on this channel, and then I also want to talk about the first draft. I was hoping by now I would have a regular upload schedule, but it's just not happening, so I thought maybe I would just take a few minutes to explain a little bit about what's going on with me. Nothing too long or in depth, but I was recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia and dysautonomia. So basically the fibromyalgia part is a constant fatigue and chronic pain. And the dysautonomia part is where your autonomic system doesn't quite work the way it's supposed to. So things like sweat, blood pressure, heart rate are kind of out of whack. So I have a team of specialists now that I'm seeing. I have to take off work and it's been pretty draining. But I was able to find a group of specialists at VCU to help me out. This is all pretty new to me, so I'm part of me not really being able to have a scheduled upload is I'm still learning how to deal with these diagnoses, what it means to me, how I can try to set myself up for better days and things like that. Unfortunately, I know that a lot of you watching this understand this on a way too personal level, and I wish that you didn't, but you understand what chronic pain and fatigue can do to the body, and also trying to learn a new diagnosis and how to work around it. It can be very draining. So there are days when I wake up in the morning and I feel great and I think that I'm going to be able to record a video, and then by the end of the day when I can, it's just not in me. I don't have the ability to do it. Also, you've probably noticed in my videos that sometimes I'm standing, sometimes I'm sitting. It just depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I can't stand sitting and I have to be standing. Sometimes I don't feel strong enough to be standing the whole time, so I sit. So I'm just trying to figure out what works best for me. I'm still trying to figure out my setup. That alone is taking a little bit, trying to figure out where the camera should go, what the lighting should be, things like that. You know, there's the normal learning curve of starting the YouTube videos and never having even edited a video before. And then on top of that, my own personal learning, my new diagnosis, learning what my body is doing. And then on top of that, you know, I have a 6-year-old daughter, I have a wonderful husband, I've got 3 cats and a dog, you know, just everyday life. I do have a full-time job. So sometimes shuffling the videos into life, it doesn't happen in, you know, over a week or so. And I'm trying to make this more consistent. I am trying to figure out a way to get a good, consistent upload schedule going, but I just don't know how long it's going to take me. So hopefully you're okay with surprise videos, and maybe it just makes your day to see that I finally uploaded one. That would be nice. I really appreciate those of you who have been watching on a regular basis, those of you who have been commenting. I get a lot of great feedback, either on YouTube or off YouTube. So I thought maybe I would just give you a little bit more information about what's going on behind the scenes and why regular scheduled uploads is a little bit difficult for me right now. All right, enough about that. Let's talk about the first draft. Now, I wanted to specifically talk about the first draft because I know that that first draft and how daunting it is why a lot of people are out there walking around with beautiful stories in their mind and they can't get it down on paper. One thing I know for sure that prevents that author out there from getting that story out of their mind is that perfectionism. We all have a degree of it, and sometimes that perfectionism just gets in the way of somebody sitting down and getting the story out onto paper. I know that perfectionism comes from that fear of whatever is written out not being exactly what's in your mind. Fortunately for me, I have changed a lot of my perspective about that first draft because of my years of editing. And I really have come to enjoy and embrace the editing journey because it is a journey. Really, if there is anything that I could emphasize and get out there on YouTube and help authors understand, is that writing is supposed to be a journey. It's not a, you have an idea, you get it out on paper, it's 100% perfect the first time, and you move on. That story has to develop, and being able to embrace that your first draft is probably not going to be 100% what you wanted in your mind, and that it's going to take some editing revisions, it's going to take some going back and reading it to get it to where you want it, or to get it to the best version of what that story could be. It's hard. It's hard work. It's hard to get past that lump. It's hard to want to edit. And I know I'm very fortunate in that I really enjoy the editing process now. And I really am excited about the fact that my first draft probably isn't going to look anything like what I want it to. But I really enjoy the journey of seeing those revisions develop the story into something really incredible. And I really, really wish if I had some kind of magic that I could go out to all those new authors and I could give them that confidence and acceptance that your story is going to be the best version of that story, and accept that journey that it's going to take to get there. But what's stopping those authors is that knowledge that their first draft is probably not going to be what they want. And I know that's perceived as failure, which people don't like failing. That mindset of I'm going to do this and it's not going to look great and it's going to be a failure stops so many people from doing anything. What I would love to see is more authors embracing the fact that that first draft is probably going to be yucky, and it's okay. That first draft is probably going to be riddled with errors. It's probably going to have potholes. The character development probably isn't as 3D as it could be. Yes, it's probably going to be a mess. It probably won't look like the perfect thing that you had in your mind. And it's okay. Also, your first draft is not a failure. Not writing that draft is the failure. Not sitting down and getting it out on paper is the failure. Getting it out on paper, having an ugly first draft, that is success. That is beautiful. That is wonderful. That is something you can work with. That is the beginning of your journey, and you should celebrate it. I know it goes against so many psychological things that we have built over time. Now, I know it's really unfortunate that I am an editor and I am so excited about the editing process. And I know that when I say that, there are so many people watching this that cringe, that do not like the editing process. And that's actually something that I really want to start talking about in some of my future videos, the editing process and how amazing it is. I wish that I could help authors understand that the editing process is not grueling, and it can actually be a very wonderful part of the journey of writing. I also know too, and I will acknowledge that it depends on the editor that you're working with. I do understand that there are some circumstances where it's very difficult, and it was a very difficult process. And I'm sorry for that, because the editor should not make it a difficult process. But we'll set that aside for now. Also, I don't want to get too far ahead in just talking about the editing process in general, because you can't edit something that you haven't written. You gotta get it down. You gotta get that first draft out. Think of it this way. The worst thing that can happen with your first draft is it doesn't look exactly like you want it to look. But the worst thing that can happen if you don't write that draft at all is we are missing out on a beautiful story. That story is just never written. I know it's very difficult. Even now, through all the years that I've been writing, it's really hard to sit down and get that first draft going. I will mention once again, I have a story that I'm writing. It's a YA novel about me trying to digest 3 of my sisters becoming legally blind at early ages through a genetic disorder that I did not get. I started writing this at Holland's, and I rewrote that first chapter. I can't even tell you how many times. It got to the point where my teacher, bless her heart, said, you need to stop writing the first chapter and keep going. And she was right. and my classmates helped me to get through that process. It was extremely difficult. I know it's very difficult when you start out a draft because there's all these things that the authors want to keep in their mind, like who's the audience, how are you going to market it, what publisher is going to take it. I mean, there are so many things that authors deal with, and yes, I absolutely validate and acknowledge that. It's a hard journey. I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard to figure all that out. But if all of that is stopping you from getting that first draft out, there's really no reason to wonder what publication is going to take it. No publisher is going to take an empty manuscript. You have to get it out. And honestly, as you write it, as you revise it, as that journey goes on, your market may change, your story may change. And that's okay. It's part of the editing process. It's part of the journey of writing that story. And I think that's really difficult for some people to accept too. That their first draft may change into something that they didn't originally think it would be. But I want you to be able to accept it. I just don't know how else to get across that the writing journey, it can be so rewarding. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's hard to find time to write. Yes, the editing process can be grueling, but it's all very rewarding at the same time. And you can't get on that journey if you don't get that first draft written. So it's not perfect. Great. Most of our first drafts aren't. So it's not exactly what you had in your head. Cool. See what happens with it. See how it develops on its own. See how it develops as you revise it. So it may not be something that you think a ton of people will read. So what? Write it for yourself. You'll find that there are people out there who will want to read it. Get it out there. I really want you to accept the writing journey for what it is, and it can't start without that first draft. But you've got this. You can do it. And it's going to be amazing, and it will be rewarding. And now, go write that first draft.